You're Inside Appalachia. I'm Cecelia Mason. The nation's first and only building memorializing African American veterans of World War I is located in Kimball in McDowell County, West Virginia. Thursday night, there was a Black History Month celebration at the memorial highlighting the work of two previously unknown poets from the era. The two sisters from Beckley, Ada and Ethel Peters, who at age 17 and 19 wrote an 83-page book that was published in 1919. The authors were half-sisters to Jean Barnes Peters' husband.
It was protest, and which seemed unusual to me for teenage girls in 1919 in rural West Virginia.
The fifth poem in the book is written by Ada Peters and is called The Slacker. It was this poem that caused Jean Peters to bring the little book to the attention of West Virginia University visual journalism and new media professor Joel Beeson and his students. Mrs. Peters was invited to attend an event back in 2011 at the Kimball Memorial for an exhibit the students created on World War I soldiers.
And there was a poster that said, "The colored man is no slacker." It was a World War I poster, a very idealized picture of this black soldier going off to war with kissing his sweetheart in front of a picket fence while the troops marched with the flag waving in the background. And she said, "Oh, there's a poem in this book I have called The Slacker."
The poem begins, "God forbid ere man was born to crush honor beneath his feet, that the light of day should dawn upon one who from duty flees while on freedom's bleeding altar his noble comrades have bled, but he stands idle, a slacker, disgraced before living and dead."
These young women who were 17 and 19 were commenting very intelligently on their times. They were asking for civil rights. They were very educated, very knowledgeable about what was going on in the world, and were making social commentary at that time.
So Beeson and his students took on a new project that includes an interactive website called War Poems, where you can page through the book, read the poetry, learn about its history, and the story of how Jean Peters found it on a bookshelf in her house. WVU journalism students who worked on this project were assigned to write essays based on words written by labor organizer and storyteller Utah Phillips and Sankofa, the West African belief that you can look back to get what you need now. Here's 2012 graduate Casey Hoffman.
Too much of journalism is focused on the now. Breaking news, news flash, live at 5, top stories, latest headlines, tune in now. Now, 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 now. But how much information are we really getting by limiting ourselves to now? When thousands of protesters were camping in Zuccotti Park as part of the Occupy Wall Street movement, my question was, why? What fiscal policies of the past led to this discontent? Hundreds of students at UC Davis were pepper sprayed and exposed to excessive police force. Why? What happened at Kent State in 1970? And why should that concern me personally as a college student today? In the song Bridges, Utah Phillips says that the packaging of time is a journalistic convenience that they use to trivialize and to dismiss important events and important ideas. We have been conditioned to believe that if something isn't happening now, it has no importance or relevance to us. The past is over. It's a missed opportunity. Time to move on. But we need to understand is that someday our now will be someone else's past. I think that's the biggest lesson this project has taught me. Throughout my journey, I often wondered what my now would look like to young journalists of the future. As I looked at the yellowed photographs and held the dusty artifacts in my hands, I knew that someday my life and my memories would look like that to some young kid. 100 years ago, World War I and the events surrounding it consumed the headlines, radio waves, propaganda rags, posters, even poems. To the people who lived back then, that was their now. I tried to fathom that someday the biggest events of my life, 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, the Iraqi War, might only exist through faded relics in a quiet little museum. I began to see how easy it is for generations to become so focused on their own timelines that they completely ignore previous ones. The further I delved into this timeline, the more I realized that it made my own make sense. It is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten. Acon proverb. When I first started working on this project, I had no idea what I was in for. I'd spent the last 4 years of my life training in the form of journalism that is obsessed with the present. But over the course of this project, I have, in my own way, become familiar with the concept of Sankofa. I've explored the catalogs at the Library of Congress. I sorted through box after box of documents at the National Archives. I've spent countless hours in libraries and online. I've driven hundreds of miles to talk to people face to face and learn about their nows. I have done my very best to go back and get it. The Acon people believe the past illuminates the present. To me, being a journalist only reporting on the now is like only telling half of the story. In Bridges, Utah Phillips illustrates his own concept of Sankofa. He says that time is like a river, and by standing in it, we can take out what he needs from it. My work with this project immersed me in that river. Like Phillips, I wanted to build my bridge to connect my timeline with those that came before it. It may seem strange, but Ada and Ethel Peters became like friends to me. Though there was no chance of us ever meeting, their words spoke to me like tributaries of Phillips River, like pen pals from the past. But both Phillips and the Acon people have left out something very important in their philosophies. They too have forgotten that someday, our now, will be someone else's past. We can't be certain that future people will return for what they have left behind, so we need to help them lay the foundations for their own bridges. I've said that when I first joined this project, I didn't understand how contributing to a museum constituted as journalism. I had been trained to package my storytelling into convenient little pieces of now and ignore the real, nonlinear way the truth actually reveals itself. But I came to realize that this new form of narrative is a better way to teach people about the world. A museum is, essentially, a brick and mortar version of a documentary film. Rather than simply showing your audience the past, you can have them interact with it. You can immerse them in the river of time and help them build their own bridges. I knew I had to keep the future in mind. I wanted to make Sankofa appealing to new generations. I wanted to use technology as a tool to connect the past. Innovative thinkers have dubbed this idea click and mortar to suggest combining the new, online, and the old, artifacts. With this site and the touch table installed in the Kimball Memorial in McDowell County, West Virginia, I want visitors to interact with the history at their fingertips, to explore and examine it. I want their experience to speak to them. I want them to return for what they have forgotten. This project has changed the way I see the field of journalism and how I see myself as a journalist. I've learned to incorporate the griot's art of storytelling with technology to escape the packaging of time. And yet, I am nowhere close to fully understanding the past. There are facts and dates I will never learn. There are faces and names I will never know. There are letters and papers and poems that I will never read. But Phillips is right. The past didn't go anywhere. I'm still just remembering it.
This is Inside Appalachia.